So I'll start the recording, and let's turn to the sort of business for the sort of agenda for the evening. Um, we've written down sort of three topics. I think two of them actually go together. So we're focusing really today on before people die. So those who are dying and people know they're dying. So what's that like as a ministry, relating to people and their families, when they're known to be dying, praying for them, what kind of prayers, listening well, and the whole thing of pastoral care for those who are terminally ill, and in the last stages of that. And so I think we make that one kind of topic really. And then the second one is about people bring up questions about faith, about dying, what happens when I die, why does this happen to me, will God heal me, does God heal, what does faith say to all this? That could maybe be the second one, and those questions obviously might come from the person themselves who's facing death, but equally might come from family and friends. But either way, you might find yourself receiving some of those questions and wondering how to respond. So I think if we do those kind of under those two sort of headings, looking to Sarah and to Beryl to sort of lead us on that. So perhaps if one of you starts and then the other one chips in for one topic, and then we sort of reverse the roles. Will that be all right for the two of you? So if we go with the one about caring for those who are terminally ill and dying, ministry to them, praying for those who are dying, listening well. If we do that one first, I don't know who wants to kick us off on that. Either Beryl or Sarah. Do either of you want to
Well, Beryl, do you want to go? Because nobody's heard you yet. So,
okay,
yeah. Why don't you chip in, Beryl, and then Sarah can come in further on the line. Yeah.
I think the first thing to consider is how one becomes involved in that ministry, whether you are part of a pastoral team that eventually work with someone who is dying, or whether people are referred to you. Each church has a sort of different way of handling this. My own experience, I was part of a pastoral team, and the first person I supported through this process, I was referred to them by the church, and I found it was so important actually to be part of a team. Someone mentioned a little earlier about the emotional impact of things on you. And it is so good to share with people, because we have to really emphasize that we need self-care when we embark on a journey with someone. I think mine was in some ways very easy. It was someone I knew, and I had prayed with them before in church, but entering into a situation where it's terminal and they are aware and the family are aware, there's a very different tension level. I think the thing to do is to actually try and relax and be yourself, not to be the expert in things, but to come alongside gently and do lots of listening. They often say afterwards, "Thank you so much, you said all the right things," when very often we say very little. But it's the listening and the unburdening of people that makes them feel that you have done something, when in fact your role has been to sit alongside people. Obviously, you go prepared with some prayers to say. but do find out how many people are going to be there, because sometimes there can be quite a number, and that might just throw you off a little bit off your prayers if you're not prepared for that. It's a huge privilege. It's incredibly humbling, the trust that is placed in your hands, that you are helping guide someone in their last hours or days. And I usually, perhaps we'll get onto that later, about the things that we would take with us or the kind of preparation that we would do. Is there anything in that gives food for thought for anyone, or any questions anyone wants to ask about that?
Can I just ask around, you said around having prayers prepared.
Yes.
Is that something in your experience you would have fairly similar prayers prepared? Is it something around knowing the situation and going in armed with knowledge around the person already? Because obviously in some you were saying you knew them already, but if you didn't already know them.
Yes, we have outline prayers in the pastoral books, the Common Worship pastoral books, that there are outline prayers. But if it's someone who isn't familiar with the liturgy and language of the church, they can seem quite stilted. So that you take from them some guidance as to how we're praying, but I would suggest you write your own, if you have the confidence to do so, because what comes from your own heart, they can tell this, whether you're reading a prepared prayer from the pastoral book. It is fine, but it's not in the language we would normally use when speaking to one another. And so, yes, I would take them, but I would have written them in advance, perhaps. But that doesn't cover everything, because sometimes questions are asked. And I think it's about really careful listening, and not being afraid of the silence. I think God speaks through the silences. I think some may feel that they have to sort of lead, and it's not really a leading. It's more like a conversation as you go. And yes, you do lead them to think about their lives. You do assure them of God's love and care for them, and never rush it. Take your time, speak slowly. These moments and times are sort of very precious to them. And if you're nervous, some people get nervous and speak more quickly, but relax yourself, prepare yourself before you go. Pray a lot. Does that answer, or is that okay?
Yes, think about being nervous. I think speaking quickly when you're nervous is often a challenge, and yes, and being afraid of silence, being comfortable with silence. I think that's really important, isn't it? Beryl, you mentioned the Common Worship books. Have you got one of those to hand, either you or Sarah, so you can wave to the screen? Which one? Have you got a green one, Sarah? I thought they were white.
Mine was the Pastoral Services.
Pastoral Services, is it? Okay.
But I've also got this one.
Okay, Pastoral Prayers. Who produces Pastoral Prayers?
But this one is Common Worship, Service and Prayers for the Church of England. But that is the the one that's got lots of the funeral ministry in it. I don't have the white one, Bill, so I don't know if they've changed.
No, so I think the white one actually I'm thinking is the weddings one. I'm getting confused.
It's purple, isn't it, I think.
I think that you probably can get purple. I've got a few different pastoral. I was just thinking about what Beryl was saying about one of the things that I was thinking about, Beryl, then as well, was a lot of the time when I've gone to near-death ministry is that the person has very often not been conscious, or I've not been able to have really a conversation with the person that's dying, but quite often there are family or friends with them in sometimes quite a small room with quite a lot of people in.
Yes.
So, I totally agree. I think one of the things that when I go, and I have prepared prayers, but not necessarily about the family, because I might not know anything about them. But things that I find quite natural to read. So even in the pastoral prayer book, I have ones marked out that I find, for me personally, easy to read in my natural form, rather than it looking or sounding like something pre-prepared and like a service. Because it can be a daunting situation, but also really just trying to talk to the people around you as well, see where they're at, because I don't know about you, Beryl, but I don't go straight into prayers. Actually, it's usually much more of a
gentle.
It may not even go straight up to the room where the person is at. It may be that you get an opportunity to talk to the family or friend away from the person that's dying. So, you can then ask questions if you need to about the person if you don't know anything, which then helps you at the bedside. I think that in every case, every time I've been, the prayer that I always do is the Lord's Prayer, because they will, even if they've never gone to church, they will have heard it. And the traditional Lord's Prayer, I have nothing. I like the contemporary one. I have no problems with that. But I just think to have that with you, because even if you know it off by heart, which we do, trust me, in those situations you will trip up. It's better to have it alongside of you, because you don't know how you're going to be thinking and feeling. And what I often do as well is I have like the Lord's Prayer, a few copies of it in my little book, so that I can hand it out to the family if they want to say it with me, without it being too stressful for them, just so they feel that they can pray.
Yes, that they are taking part. They're not just observers, but they're part of it. I don't do it all the time, but sometimes I have like a little prayer card, the little ones that you can buy with the Lord's Prayer on. And I sometimes use those. And people sometimes ask if they can keep them, and that's fine. It's a reassurance.
I'm just trying to picture the geography of this. We talked about the bedside, and that I guess this is probably either in a home where you've come in and then the person is in bed, perhaps downstairs in bed because they can't climb the stairs or whatever, or else maybe in a hospice. I guess these were the two most likely places. And then the room, if there's family around, are they round the edge and you and the person in bed are in the middle? Is there a kind of division, or do you find ways to draw them into the bedside? How do you work out the sort of geography and the dynamics of this thing?
I think for me, it's really just observing that dynamic that's with you. In some cases, you've got family members who have to be so close to that person that is dying that you need to make sure you don't push in there. I always get as close to the person that's dying as I can. so that they can hear me, praying with them if they want to. I tend to go with bless. I go with I'll anoint them. So I like to hold their hands as well. But I know that that's not for everybody, but I tend to do that. So I do go up quite close to the person, just because I feel that as well, the fact when you're invited to that situation, they're wanting you to pray with their loved one. So that's why we're there. They've invited us to do that. And so for me, it's very important that me and that person are able to, that I'm able to connect with them in some way.
Yeah.
There have been situations where that's tricky, and actually you quite often, and especially in a hospital where machines are around, and that every situation is so different that it's trying not to it's not expecting the expected, it's expecting the unexpected, really. So sorry, Beryl, if you go as well.
Yes, every situation, as you said, is so different, because I've also been into Doncaster Hospice at various times. I've been invited in by families, also ICU in Doncaster Hospital at various times of the day and night, and you go and you're not really 100% certain what you're going to meet, but what you are certain of is that they have asked that you accompany this person, that I feel you take God with you into that situation. We know he's already there, but the family have a real sense that sort of when you arrive, they are going to be blessed by your presence. And it's nothing to do with how good or clever or how good we are with words individually. It's the truth that we are embodied and we bring the presence of Christ with us. It's quite awesome to think about that, really, and very humbling. But I think going in with that sort of understanding really helps the prayer time. It really does. If you stumble or worry, pause, because they actually are processing an awful lot. They have already started grieving. When someone is informed that their loved one is dying, they've already started grieving, and it's a sort of traumatic and shocking thing for them, no matter how much they try and hold everything together. But your presence, hopefully, will be a great comfort to them. Even when I've felt I haven't said a lot or done a lot, the responses have always far outweighed what I felt I was able to do. So be assured that you take our Lord in with you.
Yeah, sorry, I know, Beryl, I think you've had the same experience as me, because I think we talked about this when we met before, is that I've been on one particular occasion, it has only happened once so far, where the family have called me in, and they wanted prayers of what they call the last rites, but it's really just the the blessing and the reconciliation. But anyway, I've got prayers looking at a lady who I have no medical background. I don't know if somebody's going to die or not, but she didn't look great, and blessed her with oil, said all the prayers, and then when I came away, the family rang me a couple of days later to say, you've you've worked a miracle. She's sat up. She's again, we can't believe.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, oh my goodness me. So, and
I've had this as well.
I was quite new into this ministry. So, and I'm thinking, but does that mean if I've done the last rites that I've condemned her anyway? I mean, it was and she actually lived for a few more months, did this amazing lady. And I did end up doing her funeral in the end, and that became a bit of a bit of something to smile about, actually, because I knew the family quite well. So actually, we never really know what's going to happen either. I mean, in a hospice, it's probably a little bit different, but this lady was in her own home, and as I say, no medical expert, but she looked pretty unaware.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, Beryl, I know did you say you had that same experience?
Yes, I was called into an old folks' home. Sorry, that sounds, well, you know what I mean. Because the old lady, they rang me and they were, oh, you must come quickly. And I was somewhere else. And I said, I might not be able to get back in time, So it was a bit of a dash to get there. And yes, the lady looked very, very still, very unwell. And I thought, I'll probably hear later tonight that she has died. I hadn't heard anything. I rang them the next morning and they told me she was sitting up eating her breakfast. So they say, what did you do? And I'm thinking, well, whatever happened, it wasn't me, because we don't have that power. We are just, but yes, I did go and see her about 3 weeks later, and she was really doing very well. She did die about 3 or 4 months after that. Yeah,
you did, right. A couple of things you mentioned. I mean, I think you've mentioned the last rites, which is a traditional thing, particularly more in the Catholic tradition, and also I think Beryl, I think you may have mentioned prayers of reconciliation. Can you just unpack those two a bit? What are those two sort of technical names of things?
Sorry, Beryl, do you want to go, or do you?
If you start,
would say people tend to call it the last rite. See, Catholic or because that's the terminology that they know. And I remember when I first went into this thinking, gosh, I need to know exactly what those words are. But of course, it is just reconciliation prayers. So asking the Lord to have mercy on their soul, and but they're in the book of common prayer.
Common worship, is it? Or
common worship book.
Yeah.
You don't have to know what these are off by heart. They are in here, and you can take bits of what you need for those, but it's asking God to have mercy on them, for saying sorry for the things that they may or may not have done in their life. But really it's just that's what what I find is that's what the family just want them to go to heaven, even if they don't believe it. So they believe they need these prayers in order for that to happen. So it's really just reassuring them on that. But I do use my common worship book for that, and I have a few. I've kind of made notes on the ones that I'm more comfortable saying. I can say quite naturally. But Beryl, I'll if you go.
Yes, I agree. The term last rites is something they see in all the old films, isn't it? It's a sort of cultural thing rather than it is something that the Church of Rome do name like that, but it's because they've seen it on the telly or wherever. But yes, I suppose it's because they are fearful that of hell as they perceive it to be. none of us can make a judgment on anyone, but we can bring comfort and reassurance and tell them that we have an amazing God, a merciful God. And I think that's very important. I think the term prayers of reconciliation, I think I got it from it's obviously from one of the perhaps the Common Worship book, because I wouldn't have made it up. I've obviously seen it and read it somewhere. And so I explain it to people if they ask about it, that it is about drawing close to God, to saying sorry, and that's the reconciliation.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the what you've been describing. The various prayer books is also all on the Church of England website. I'll send round to everybody the link so you can find all this material online. Although many of us find it does help also to have a physical book. Or otherwise you sort of print stuff out for the service, both options. But in that there is a section called reconciliation. And yes, it's to do with repentance, regrets. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. The Jesus prayer there is the first one they offer. So very simple prayers about being reconciled to God and reconciled to each other. And of course, it's those two dimensions that come to the fore most strongly when someone's facing death. I think the need for both of those. Should we throw it open there? Have any questions, comments from people? What does this raise that you want to ask or talk about more?
I have a couple of practical questions, not connected, but you mentioned about if somebody's unconscious or really not with it. But if somebody's, so obviously if somebody's got like Alzheimer's or something like that, they might be seemingly lucid but not know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they potentially could get quite upset if they realize what's going on. Is that something you would treat quite differently? Because obviously it's about keeping them calm and giving them peace, but it's also about giving peace for the family. So is that something that you've experienced, or does it tend to be that in those situations they wait until the person is not conscious enough to know what's happening?
Is this Kate, because you've got a sense that the one who's dying doesn't know they're dying? Is that
yes,
part of the issue?
Yeah, it's just I know within our church in the last year, I know a couple of the funerals we've done, the people that were dying did not know they were dying. Everybody around them knew, they didn't know. And obviously that's a very difficult situation to navigate, and it's an increasing, like, I know within our church we're seeing a lot more dementia, and it's something that we've done some dementia training, and one of the big things that they talked about on that is making sure that the person with dementia is not made to feel that they're stupid or wrong, or because that makes it worse.
No, yeah.
So I guess it was just, is there tips or is there a way of handling that?
I think when I've come across that, Kate, it is quite rare as well, because for me, mostly my experience is the person that is dying is aware of it, or they've sensed it in some way. There's something natural within us, I suppose, where we know whether we have dementia or not. But one thing that I've been really careful of is I just choose my words really carefully, and again use familiar things that they will know in their, rather than it being something direct about them dying, is using the Lord's Prayer slowly and over again. And some of these prayers of reconciliation don't actually say that they're about to die or they're dying. So it's just making sure, and actually whether they know it or not, just because of how I feel about it and how comfortable I am, I tend to avoid that sort of language anyway, because actually we don't know. Just like the lady that I went to pray with. So it's always, we're all going to die, but I don't say prayers that are assuming that they're going to die, sort of imminently.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, it's just about choosing the language that you use, and I'd be careful in all my situations with that, to be honest.
Just picking up on what you said about dementia. The strange thing is, I have found that yes, there may be some agitation, but the minute you start saying the Lord's Prayer, my experience is that they have become calm and usually joined in, even if people thought that they weren't able to string words together. It's something very deep within people, I think, from their childhood days, and that familiarity sort of carries them through. And the words are incredibly profound, and we don't know the effect that will have on them, but my own personal experience is it's been a very calming thing for them, the saying of prayers, and particularly, as you said, the reciting of the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Any other questions? We'll have a break in a moment, but anything else that's come up so far people want to explore a bit more? Give us a wave or something and chip in. Yeah, Joe?
It's a purely practical point, and it goes back to what Sarah, I think, was saying right at the beginning. If you have got written prayers, then before you use them, sit and say them out loud to yourself, because that's where I've found sometimes you will write something, feels good on paper, you start to read it, it doesn't work for whatever reason. There's a difference between the written word and the spoken word. And this is something I found in various times when I've done intercessions, when I've preached, anything like that. I think it goes back to my filmmaking days, that sometimes words on paper do not say the same. And it's possible that you can trip over. So if you can just go through them yourself, sit somewhere, play them out loud. Don't read them quietly, say them out loud in a similar sort of way to the way you expect to be saying them.
So then you get more comfortable and fluent with them, and also you
more comfortable, more fluent, and you also find out where there are combinations of words or run-ins. I used to have problems saying my full name, Joseph Pritchard. I just used to totally fall over.
Right.
And it's just those sometimes those run-ins, those combinations of words, be aware of them, and I think that's the most important thing, because it just adds to that confidence that you've got, and the confidence and the comfort that you're going to give.
Thank you.
Just again, a small practical point. I'm a lay person, and so obviously don't wear a collar, but I've had relatives have asked me to come robed, particularly if I'm going to hospital. And this is their sense of occasion, and we must respect that, because that makes them comfortable. Although it's not always possible, it depends where you are when you get the call and how long you've got. If it's just half an hour, you might not have the opportunity to robe.
So Beryl, you're a reader, so you've got your own robes. You're able to do this. Yes, this may be an interesting issue, because obviously some of us here may not have robes, although there may be some in church. But I guess you say you've sometimes been asked to do this not simply at the service, but also at the visit to the bedside. Is that what you're flagging up here?
Yeah.
I've not heard of that. That's interesting.
I think particularly, I do remember one occasion particularly where it was actually quite late at night. It was after 9 o'clock, and I was going into Doncaster Hospital, and it was somebody I knew from church, and they said, "Will you please come robed?" And they felt that that would make a difference to the person who was dying, because they would feel not the formality of it, and it's not really to do with authority in the sense that our prayers are better than others. It's nothing to do with that, but it just was a great reassurance. And so, yes, I turned up in robes at Doncaster Hospital. And then,
I think there's something in that for as well, because there's two things. It can help you to no longer be you, if that makes sense. It takes the onus from you a little bit. For me, a robe is more of something that helps us almost blend into nothing. I can't explain that, but also it can give yourself that, right, okay, this is where I'm needed. This is
the role,
This is it. So for some people, that's really helpful to be able to put that on. You're almost, I don't know, it's your own
price in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and for some people that's probably helpful. I don't particularly go robed when I'm visiting the sick, or when I'm doing a funeral visit, but I do have a collar, so I suppose that makes some difference a little bit, just for the person. It's obvious I'm a vicar because I'll have my collar on, but I think it's I think it's about how you feel about that, isn't it? And what how that so for some people they'll be much more comfortable in their own clothes, but then if you're robed, you don't have to think about what you're going to wear.
That's true.
What would be appropriate, what isn't appropriate? Do I go in something bright or do I go in something dark? We don't have to think about us.
Well, one night it was nearly pajamas, but not quite.
And this is a slightly different situation, but just for the verger in our church, and Kate, you might, I don't know what you wear when you're a verger, but for our when I first got there, the verger was very, she didn't have a lot of confidence, quite shy, she kind of almost hid away a little bit instead of being able to come forward and show people where to sit. So I suggested we get her just a cassock, and it instantly changed her. She then felt that she was in that space. She was there to do it, because she says, now I don't feel out of place because I've only got my jogging bottoms on and a top, and look the part. So there is something about having a cassock. You can just wear a black cassock. You don't have to wear the whole surplice and everything. But I'm wondering whether this is something we think about, Bill, for people that aren't readers or priests as well.
Yes, we haven't really thought about that specifically before, so that's an interesting little aspect of it. Kate, what do you have when you're verging?
I just wear black, and I definitely, I tend to be manning the sound desk, so I'm not doing the welcoming into the church unless people are coming in because of the weather. If it's a standard normal weather and everybody's waiting outside and coming in with the coffin, I've got to play the music, so I can't be at the door greeting people. And quite often that then falls to the funeral director, who quite often gets everybody sat down and does all of that. But I know we have a reader who does most of our funerals, and she always robes up. And it's the only time anybody wears a robe in our church. We are not a robing church. So I think can count on probably one hand the number of times I've seen our vicars in robes. and it was predominantly at the cathedral when they've been being
ordained,
or when they're supporting an ordination, or when they were being commissioned within our own church. That's the only time they generally wear the robes, and weddings when somebody asks, and funerals. But I think one of the things I would say is, I think it's like a uniform. I only really wear my black. I don't really wear a lot of black, so I only really wear it when I'm virgin. So it comes out and I put it on, and then I get home and I take it off, and that's it. And it's kind of a good way of, for me, and kind of like Sarah was saying, it's like you put it on, right, I'm in funeral mode, and it's almost like when you take it off, you take some of that emotion off that you've held with it. And I think as well, if you're doing funerals which involve burials, I know one of the things that Julie said is she's very thankful for the robe into the colder weather, because she can layer up and not get as cold. Whereas if you're just wearing a smart black suit or something like that, and then you go out to a burial in the middle of winter, you've not got very many layers on. Obviously, the converse is true in the middle of summer when it's ridiculously hot and she's sweating in it. But, you know, I think...
wear your shorts underneath. I think it's contextual.
Yeah.
It will depend on where you are. So in where I am here, where people want a traditional service, they want to see you in robes. They would find it highly unusual for somebody to be taking a funeral who wasn't in a robe. So I think it really is, contextual as to wherever you are.
Yeah, and also if it's a church funeral, it might be quite different from if it's a community funeral in terms of the expectation. If church expectation and culture is normally quite unrobed and relaxed, then they might be quite comfortable with the funeral not being robed, whereas the community, it might be quite different.
I think the other thing is, I think Julie always says she always robes because she's not a vicar. And so it's her way of, because you would have a dog collar on if you were leading a funeral as a vicar, you have a dog collar on. You have something that identifies you as the person leading the service. And I think it's that reassurance that people get by seeing somebody in the uniform. And I think it's a universally known uniform of church. So I do think that it is something that needs possibly discussing and stuff further down the line, but I think it probably is something that is sensible for most people, certainly doing church funerals.
Yeah, thank you. That's all helpful and interesting. Why don't we have a 5-minute break, and then if people have got further questions, then we'll go into those, and then we'll just spend a bit of time on this other aspect of when questions come up about faith and dying and healing and all those sort of things, how we handle those. Is that okay? So 5 minutes of screen break, and then we'll resume. So a bit of time for any more questions from the various things that we were talking about before the break. Any further questions or comments, reflections anybody wants to chip in arising from that?
I think go on, Keith.
I've about uniform or whatever. I wear a white alb with a rope belt, mainly thanks to Michael Towell, who was with us on the first session. Decided that if I was going to stand up there, I needed something that made me into that person at that time. So I wear that for all things, and I wore it when I did the funeral with Eleanor as well. And I think then people can differentiate then between the role that you're doing or what you're doing. And it works well out our way.
Yeah.
If I don't have it on, then I'm one of them.
Yes, I mean, there's it marks you out as the person leading the service, and so the visual thing is quite helpful for people, isn't it? Quite apart from other aspects. Yeah. Okay, so that's what practice you developed then, Keith, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Joseph, you had something to chip in.
Right, yeah, so Keith, thank you for that, because I was sort of like, I was going to ask what sort of thing would I wear. Obviously, in the Anglo-Catholic Church, it's very easy to wear black cassock and cotter. It fits. It's what servers wear.
Yeah.
But in the Anglican setting, obviously, I wear an alb for serving, and a purple cassock for choiring, but couldn't think of what to wear for funeral ministry or ministry in general. So like at Remembrance the other year, I ended up leading the service there, and ended up wearing my suit, and I ended up looking more like a town councillor. Fit very well with the town councillors, but there was nothing there that said I was a church person and that I was giving these prayers from God, for God, you know. I guess other than what I was saying, but it's just the regular service that any counsellor can read. So there's definitely needs to be some thought about sort of like what we can put on to show. I think what the Lights for Christ badges, I was so keen on those because it says I'm a Lights for Christ champion. So you know that there's a specific role and a specific purpose I'm doing by speaking to you right now. That yeah, I think it's. I'm definitely gonna have a look at that. Also, going back about what Sarah was saying about. No, it's gone. Oh, about sort of like the person coming back to life after the last rites and things. Is actually there's also that consideration that just before somebody dies, they suddenly get a lease of life, and it might be for a week. That actually nobody's expecting it. Everybody thinks they're cured, and obviously, just it's the body's last fight, if that makes sense. And the prayers of reconciliation are what they use in confession in the Catholic setting. So they're exactly the same words. And I think that was it. It's sort of like just been sorry.
Yeah, thank you. There's a number of, so you've been picking up a number of the different things we've been talking about. So that's all interesting and helpful. Yes. I think in terms of, I think what we wear, I mean, one obvious factor is to ask what do others do in your church or your deanery or whatever. I mean, in your case, Joseph, I think because you haven't had an incumbent, although where you are now, you've got an incumbent, haven't you? So
yeah, I'm under Jackie now, so but I don't think she's really got many lay ministers or had much experience.
No, but I mean, does she wear like a cassock or a?
Yeah, so she always wears a album robe, I think.
Yeah, so I think in a sense, taking the lead from that person makes sense, because then there's some consistency for the public in terms of what they see in your church, isn't there? But obviously, it depends what you've got available as well. Not everybody's got one of these things, and if the church
that's it. I've got a cassock and cotter myself, but I've not got an alb. So it might be a case of, well, I don't think the minister would just let me borrow it, but we'll see.
No, maybe. I mean, yes, if churches have choir robes and stuff, you can sometimes use those without having to buy your own. So there's things there just to work out locally, I think, isn't there?
Yeah.
Thank you. There. Thanks, Joseph. Anybody else want to chip in? Are there reflections or questions from?
I found that one of the things that when the people have been saying is the Lord's Prayer. I think a lot of people find comfort in that. I just remember an aunt of mine who was like my second mother, because my mum passed away when I was 11, and I was of an age to be able to go to the hospital when she was sort of at end of life. And I held her hand, and I just started saying the Lord's Prayer, and her body moved and her lips moved, even though I couldn't hear anything. And it was just, I felt so inclined to the fact that we had such a connection at that moment, and it had gone then. But I think a lot of people, even if you think that they're not there, there's something that they connect with when you do the Lord's Prayer.
Yes, thank you. And that's I mean, it's certainly something people acknowledged on the medical side, is that one of the last senses we lose is hearing. So sometimes even somebody in a coma who seems unresponsive can actually hear. And so if you're just saying the Lord's Prayer and holding their hand, they may even just squeeze your hand. And a related thing there is music, along with words. There's music, so that's another thing we can share and minister to people. Either if we sing ourselves or if we play some music or whatever, that can be another thing that even the person who seems unresponsive, that it may well register with them. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, other thoughts, questions, comments?
One thing I'm quite confident when it comes to singing, and I know not everybody is, but I have sang unaccompanied at a bedside, because I've asked sometimes they will let you know what they're not necessarily the person that's dying, but the family will know because they've been speaking to the person that's dying, and they'll tell you a hymn, for instance, that their favourite hymn is, and I have quite on a few occasions sang that hymn at the bedside, and then they've had that hymn again at the funeral. Something quite lovely about that. And you don't have to be able to sing necessarily to do that. I think you have to be fairly confident, but I think there's and I know we can't all do that, and I think 10 years ago I wouldn't have dared, but found the confidence to do it now. But there's something quite it's not, like you say, it's not always words. It could be that's something where you really connect with not just the person that's dying, but of course the people that are around you. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Yes, thank you. My daughter plays the flute, so when my sister was dying, she just brought a flute in and played something, and my sister then was pretty far gone in terms of her cancer, but when she heard the flute, she turned her head and smiled, and so it can
beautiful,
can register like that. Yes, thank you. Actually, you just got me thinking there. I suppose you mentioned, Sarah, sometimes having a few copies of the Lord's Prayer that you can hand out to the family if they're around a bedside gathering. I guess if there was that favourite hymn and you managed to print out a few copies of that, you could even draw them in to join singing it if that was suitable. I mean, in a sense, that's more something for the funeral, but it's something you could think about doing with a small group round a bedside, I suppose.
I've never been prepared where I've known that before I've gone, to be honest, Bill. That's been something I kind of found out while I was there.
Right.
So, and in some cases, I don't know all the words, so I hum.
Okay, right, yeah.
Because it may be that I only know the first verse and a chorus of something, but depending on it's not something you would be doing in, really out loud. It's just something really intimate and beautiful. Something I always take with me as well, which I don't know if this will be helpful to other people, is and you can just put them in. It is a candle. Now, and I have candles that I can light and candles that have got that look like a real flame, but they're not.
The battery ones. Yeah.
They're my least favourite, but it depends where you're at. You might not be allowed to light them. But if you can light a candle, there's something really quite lovely about that as well, and spiritual and engaging, so people can concentrate on the flame, rather, and I have found that really helpful. If it's in somebody's home, then it's been quite lovely. So I do have a candle I've got a little box that I can take, and always make sure you take something to light it. So it's just about preparation, really. But there is something quite lovely about that, which just it can feel like a lifetime when you're in there. Particularly if there's lots of silence, you don't know how long you're going to be sat there. So having things that you can do that might make you feel a little bit more comfortable, or the people around you. As soon as I get a sense of when it's time to leave. Can't really explain that. I don't know about you, Beryl. I just think it's okay now. I can walk away from this. Yes. There's something about overstaying your welcome or going too soon, isn't there? And getting that balance right. And I'm not sure I have, by the way. It's more by luck, by judgment. But we can outstay our welcome, I suppose. So we need to know when it's time to go.
Yes, a good question. I haven't thought about that before. How long does one stay at this sort of thing? I think there's no particular answer, is there? What do you think, Beryl, on that one?
No, I think that's right. You actually, she's right. You sort of have to sense it. It's about having your spiritual ears open, I think, on that one. I also sometimes take a holding cross, one of the little palm crosses.
Mm-hmm.
We have a number of them in church for occasions like this, where you can take one along if it's appropriate. And yes, that's often has quite an impact on people. Yeah.
Mm. And do you sometimes end up leaving the cross with them then? If they're
holding...
yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. We sounds awful. We bought a job lot.
Yeah, that's good.
Because they were a lot cheaper on their own. They're a few pounds. And you wouldn't just sort of throw them around exactly, but yes, they have been very useful. And one or two families have said, we've asked for the cross to be put into the coffin and to go with them, so it's meant something to them too,
Yeah, thank you. Well, should we move on just to the other aspect of this thing of when people ask questions about death and dying, and it might be heaven and hell, or healing, or faith. So, I mean, first of all, does that happen, or is it quite unusual? And if it does, who asks? I mean, is it the one who's dying, or is it more the family around? And either way, how do we respond to this situation ourselves if we're there as the sort of the figure they look to with this question? Do you want to, I don't know, Beryl or Sarah, just chip in any experiences there?
I think I'm quite fortunate in the fact that it was exactly that situation that brought me to faith. So I thought I was dying, and there wasn't anybody to pray with me. I was in Doncaster Hospital. I didn't even know how to pray. I didn't know Jesus. But I was critically ill, and the doctor sat on my bed and didn't know if I would last the night. So then I was faced with, okay, so I'm 40 years old. I've got a husband and small children. Is there a heaven or a hell? And that's when I began to pray, probably really quite rubbish, because I had no idea. Actually, I know now that there is no rubbish prayer. So, but that back then, things were very different. So I found my faith through that, through illness, and I made a bit of a pact with God that if I lived, I would find out if he was real. So obviously I lived, and I kept the promise. So from a personal point of view, I feel able to respond to those sorts of questions just because of my own experience, because I know how that feels. And people, I tend to find that people, it's not usually the person that's dying.
Yeah.
It's either people that are ill, but they haven't been told they're dying. Because so you will get those questions at some point in ministry, or family and friends. So I tend to do a lot of pausing in that and just trying to really take in that what's happening around us, and assure them of the wonder of glory. And when God calls us, it's our time to go. But I think that this is where I don't use written stuff in. This is personal stuff, isn't it? So maybe it's a good thing to have something ready to respond to those sorts of things. And you know, even if it's with your incumbent and saying how would you respond to that sort of question, and having something not rehearsed, or because you never know what situation you're going into. But for me, because it's quite personal, I've never really had to. I remember how I felt, and I wish I'd have had somebody there to talk to me and reassure me that if I die, then God is there for me, regardless of the fact that I didn't know him, I didn't deserve him, and I'd done nothing in my life that had given me, you know, sort of gold stars to get through the pearly gates. So, and I wish I'd have had that reassurance. And that's the reassurance that I saw afterwards. So I think it's me just being able to reassure them of glory. And there's not many things I'm sure about in life, but Jesus is one of them. So, so that's something I can say with real conviction. Sorry if that's not very helpful to anybody else.
Oh no,
that was real. I was going to say that was really helpful, Sarah.
Testimony.
You could hear your voice cracking when you could hear you connecting in that, and I think that's really important
as well. But me personally, probably as many as any others, we worry too much and thinking we've got to come up with the theology about it all. And at that moment in time, people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear about A, B, and C and how we've gone through the theology of it. It's about how can we connect with them to be able to say, Jesus is so wonderful and marvelous, and God's glory is for each and every one of us. And I think it's hard because when you're not in that situation, you don't know what you're going to do. And I think until you've experienced being in those situations, you worry, thinking, am I going to get it right? Is it the right thing to say? But I think God's going to be with you to be able to say the right thing, because He's with us as we're traveling along this journey at the moment. And I think we have to trust in Him that we're going to get it right.
Miss Beryl, do you want to chip in there?
I do. I don't think it's the time for a deep theological conversation when you're accompanying someone, you know, in their last hours. The questions will arise, I think. From my own experience, it's been the people around them have said, oh, you've given me something to think about, or you know, I'd like to talk about that later. And occasionally people have followed up on that. But I think it's we planting seeds wherever we go, you know, even at the deathbed, and they will go away and maybe discuss them with somebody else. But I think all we need is that reassurance that they are loved, whatever they have done, they are loved by God. Although most people do not believe that that could be the case, depending on their own life journey. But it actually puts a thought into their mind that perhaps wasn't there before. I think the important thing is our own understanding and theology of what's going on, because I do think that transmits, like you said, even without the words. It's the assurance, the love that we try and give them in their time of distress. And I think all this it's very hard to actually explain in words, but it's very tangible. And it's profound, and they feel it.
So it's as much in terms of our presence and our manner as much as the words that's communicating that God is there and that love and grace is there. I think that, and I think, I want to echo that. I think this is not the moment to say very much. I think whether it's the question from the one who's dying or from the family around. I think, there are other times when you can go into stuff in depth, but this is the moment for something simple and profound and personal that you really believe to be shared. But maybe later in life there'll be more opportunities to explore the depth and the complexities of hard questions. But this is probably not the moment for complexity. It's the moment for something simple and profound, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Because it is a spiritual experience. We've talked about a lot of the mechanics of it and what we wear and perhaps what we might say, but it is a spiritual experience for us and them, and sometimes words get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just to say that we, as we're speaking, it made me think about a couple of times when it's been really hard, because you may have somebody there, a family member or a friend there, who is really angry that they're really frustrated and want to know why they're dying when they're such a good person and they're such in this world. So, and I found my ministry training really helpful on that, because I looked at, why is there evil in this world? So I'm a little bit more prepared for that. But that's something, perhaps some prep will be helpful for you, is to talk about, how do you respond to somebody when they say, how is there a God when there is so much evil in this world? Why are they taking if there is a God, why are they taking my,
Or you sometimes get the phrase, God only takes the good ones, which is, it's a sort of phrase that's within our culture, isn't it? And it's an easy thing to hook onto.
It's hard to be more angry, isn't it? Because that's
but there is anger with grief. It's part of grief.
Yeah.
And they've already, before the death, they've already started that sort of journey of grief, haven't they? And different people respond very differently. And even when you're doing like a funeral visit,
So yes,
what I'm saying is, it's just about try not to. There will be so many unexpected conversations within funeral ministry. So, and you won't have all the answers, and that's okay, because we learn by experience as well. But it's just to, it won't always be calm and beautiful. It will sometimes be messy. And really hard. So, and again, that's where do you then shield, how do you then reflect afterwards and make sure you're okay? And there'll be loads of times when you come out thinking, I could have done that so much better. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have said this. Again, you can't predict those sorts of situations. So I try to be as prepared as I can be. But as I said before, expect the unexpected, and then nothing, I'm not shocked by it. I can just, and again, when I don't know what to say, I don't say anything.
Yes, I think this whole thing of handling ourselves comes in here. And you've mentioned that we don't have to have all the answers. I think that's really important. And sometimes to say that I don't know, that I don't have the answer to that, I don't know. We may feel we've got to kind of defend God, defend faith, and all the rest of it, and actually that's a big ask, really. So I think it's perfectly okay to say I don't know why, why this should happen to your particular family member, but I am convinced about this, and let's have something to share that's positive in testimony. But being prepared to say I don't know, and I don't have all the answers, I think is really important. And also being able to cope with anger. We mentioned people being angry. So if they're just, if stuff's coming out that's really just a venting of anger, then allowing them to do that without immediately feeling, I've got to defend God here because they're attacking God. I think just letting that be expressed can be something we give people without really having anything much to say in response to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure, do, Kate.
So about 5 years ago at our school, one of our year 8 students at the time was killed on the railway line. He'd been playing nearby with a friend. Friend had thrown his shoe on. He'd gone on to get it anyhow. So we got into school the next morning to that news. And I mean, I'm head of RE, but I went to our school mentor's office, which was full of hysterical students, obviously. And it was 2 days of precisely those questions we've been looking at. You know, why did God let this happen to Tyler? And I said a lot of the things that you ladies have already said. You know, I don't know. I'm angry about, you know, yes, I'm angry with God. Why would God take Tyler? And several of them, so those kids are now in year 12 now. And, you know, several of them have said to me at times since, we really appreciated you being honest with us and telling us that you didn't know and that you were cross too. So I think that is really important.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very, very helpful story. Yeah. Yeah, something about being authentic, isn't there? Being genuine, which includes the fact that there's an awful lot we don't know. So we're just being honest about that, really. I think people see through us if we try and have too many answers when we just don't have them, really. Yeah, other thoughts, questions on that? This whole, maybe we moved into the whole territory of how we handle ourselves. And I think it actually just came up when we're talking about what we wear, isn't it? Whether sometimes having a uniform, the taking off of the uniform can be also the unburdening of some of the weight of the event that we've experienced, which I hadn't thought of before. But that's an interesting point. After the service, if you've taken on board a lot of angst, or not the service necessarily, but maybe the visit or the deathbed's place, then how do you handle that afterwards? Anybody want to just say any more on that, because that is quite important?
I am aware that I've spoke quite a bit, but I always wear a cassock and not an alb for funerals. But that's just I don't know why. I wear an alb for all the other services. I wear a cassock for funerals, cassock and a surplice and a stole. And I suppose that's because traditionally round here, I think that's more traditional, but also it's quite heavy, my cassock. There is something very physical about taking that off when I get home, because I come home at home. My alb's always in church, my cassock's always at the rectory, and there is something about when I walk through the door at home and take that off. And that must be something that I've done really quite unconsciously, but it does help me to process that sorrow and tragedy that you've just been in. Even though we know the glory of heaven, or I'm really assured by that, they're still surrounded by real
pain,
sorrow and pain, and taking it off. Even if it is just something that you wear for vergering or funerals, like Kate said, it's your uniform, something that you can just physically do. I find that, and actually just try, even if you only get a few minutes, sit down, have a cup of tea, or a brandy, whatever you need. But you know, and that is for me. I've never really thought about it before, but it just reminded me when I take it off and I've taken that weight off. I
wonder if there's also something about the weight of it holding you, because there's something sensory wise, like a weighted blanket is something that you use to calm your nervous system, and obviously you're trying to keep your nervous system calm whilst actually presiding. So actually having that weight helping with that I think would potentially help as well. I was going to agree with the making sure you're putting time aside afterwards.
Yeah.
It's something that me and Julie that does our funerals, we always try to have half an hour together. We go for a coffee, but somewhere where we can sit and just get out of that mindset in a calmer way. I'm also a breastfeeding peer supporter, and different stories, but there's a lot of grief in breastfeeding. And one of the things that we were trained in was the emptying your cup after you've taken somebody's grief, pain, whatever. It's making sure that you have somebody. So they have a really strong structure where if you did an appointment, you then fed back to your mentor, who then, and they have like a chain of, it would just get fed along a chain. So, and I'm guessing obviously depending on where you are and who that would be, but there'll be somebody in your church that will be that person for you. Because it's sometimes, I guess as well, if you feel like something didn't go right, it's somebody giving you almost the permission that it's okay. It doesn't all have to be perfect. Like you said, we don't have to know all the answers.
Yes, thank you. So I think that's articulating. I'm a bit anxious that this didn't go right. Being able to say that to someone, even if that person wasn't present, so they can't say yes or no, but just putting it out there, I think, could be quite helpful, couldn't it? And just the doing of that may help get it in perspective. It may well be it wasn't nearly as bad as you were worrying about, but it's handling your own feelings about it and getting it right. The whole thing of wanting to get this right is very understandable and natural. But there's a lot in life we don't get right, and I think funerals are no exception. So we have to find a way past that. That it won't always be perfect, and that can still be fine. Beryl, have you got any thoughts on this kind of territory? Yeah.
I certainly agree. I make sure. I know we're crossing over a little bit into funeral ministry here rather than prayers for the dying, but the same principle applies. I always make sure after a funeral that I don't have any meetings. I can't suddenly switch my brain on to negotiate sort of financial facts or something. You need time to process what's just happened, and you need rest. And so I don't, if I've had a funeral or perhaps a visit, a bedside visit, I try and make sure that there is nothing afterwards, so that I've got the time to recover. Because if we don't, I think we put quite a burden upon ourselves mentally, which is not good. And we need to, in one physical sense, we need to model good practice, and to wear yourself out isn't doing that, is it?
I need to listen to you, Beryl.
Because we do push ourselves, because we feel a sense of not just calling, but responsibility. And am I doing enough? And we can't say no. That's another thing that's not good. Yes. Because Jesus,
you mentioned the funeral visits as well there, Beryl, and giving yourself that extra time also means that if it does run longer than you expected, you've also got that more of a buffer, haven't you? Because if you've thought it's going to be an hour and it ends up being 2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what Kate was saying at the beginning, wasn't it? The one you did that actually you said allow more time than you expect for the
that's exactly what I did. I was going out in the evening and I was very I can't sit here looking at my watch, but all the time's going on type of thing. So it's a learning curve.
And there will be times when you have to go back, because you just need to stop. It's gone on long enough. Actually, let's see if we can make another time to meet, because it depending on how many people are at the visit and who wants to speak, it can and that's tiring on yourself then, isn't it? So something helpful to say, let's leave it there where we are today. Let's put another date in a couple of days. Come back and see you, because there's so much going off. It's almost that's but that's funeral ministry again, I know.
But can I say thank you to the people who commented at the start, because I think even without realizing it, I've been worrying over this, heckling as we called it at the funeral,
Yes.
We're without an incumbent at the minute, so there wasn't really anyone to feedback to. So that was really helpful. So thank you.
That's good. Well, I'm glad this group's been able to serve that purpose a bit. And do one of the things people to do this with obviously is whoever's supervising you in this training, to be able to process it with them afterwards. Is even if they were present at the time of the visit or the funeral, even so, to process your feelings, I think, is really important and necessary. Just mention of time going on makes me realise time is going on. We just got 5 minutes really, but anybody else want to chip in? Particularly those who haven't said so much. Any questions, comments, things people want to ask or mention?
Can I just back something up on the taking time out afterwards? One of the things that I do as a pallbearer, I work with another 3 fantastic guys, mainly we're the A team, and we work together. But we always take time out after a funeral, even though we're only carrying, to make sure that everybody else within the group is okay. Because sometimes it can be somebody they know personally, could have been a relative or something, and sometimes there's just the situations that can trigger something else, but we do take the time to make sure. And again, back to the WhatsApp group, we have a WhatsApp group, and if anybody's got any problems or that were a bit awkward today, or and we sort it out. So it is important to have that time, or to have somebody that you can share it with.
So Keith, do you just do that in the WhatsApp group, or do you actually sit down and have a cup of tea together afterwards, or what do you do?
Both. And we also have social times as well. One of the lads is a shooter, so he'll take the lads out, with his shotgun up to shooting range or that, and go bowling and go out and have a meal. Just time that we get, with each other, to understand each other.
Yeah, thank you. That's interesting. Thank you. Anybody else?
One thing I would add, well, 2 little things really. First of all, our self-care is a safeguarding issue in its broadest sense. If we, basically, we need to be able to treat ourselves like we would treat anyone else who we have any responsibility for in terms of safeguarding within the church. And so I think that's something that's worth bearing in mind. And the second thing is sometimes be prepared for some of these discussions popping up out of context. Some years ago, someone popped up one evening on, I think it was Facebook or something, and asking me about a cousin of theirs had taken their own life, and this was in America, and basically the church that this person belonged to had a very, 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 very hard line on suicide. And the person who approached me was very, very upset and concerned about this, and was just asking about, how do you feel? What's the church's position on this? And I was able to share a lot of what we talked about tonight. But these things, they pop up out of context. And I think it is worthwhile being aware that these things may happen. And sometimes you may need to say, well, actually, let's get together and talk about this at another occasion, if you can't handle it at that point.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Well, there's been a lot shared there. Thank you for that. Is that enough for this evening? I think maybe it is. We'll close in prayer in a moment. We meet again in about a month's time, Wednesday, the 11th of February. Another of these evenings. So if you can just check that that's in your diary, that would be great. And in the meantime, yeah, just keep in touch with whoever's supervising you, and both in terms of getting the experience and also doing the reflection together. Let's just take a moment of quiet and just be still. Maybe particular people come to mind, either some of us in the group who've shared things tonight, or others we've experienced funerals with. So if people come to your mind, pray for God's grace for them. Lord, we thank you again for this ministry, for those we share it with, for these experiences, some of them hard experiences, through which you've touched us and touched others, and pray that you'll continue to mold and shape us, that in our small way you may use us to bring your grace, your blessing to others in this ministry as we go forward with it. Just to close, here's one of the prayers I've just got open in front of me, the C of E website. Those prayers of reconciliation we talked about earlier, and I'll send you the link of how to find these. But one of those prayers there: Eternal God, grant to your servants your peace beyond understanding. Give us faith, the comfort of your presence, and the words to say to one another and to you, as we gather in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.